And
Isn't this really up to the, I mean, you're dealing with these private property, you're dealing with a Forest Service land for an easement to gain access to and from that property. That the Forest Service focus should be on the easement itself. And that the other part of the process should be really up to the Mineral County Board of County Commissioners and Planning Commission to decide whether or not what they're proposing is actually sustainable. I mean, with power and everything else, they're going to have to show that. Yes, we have the power. Yes, we have the water. Yes, we have this and that. Yes, we have CDOT approval. All of those agencies come into play when any kind of a development like this takes place. And there are a lot of different agencies. But really, isn't that, I mean, if you have a complaint, shouldn't it be before the Board of County Commissioners of Mineral County, and they really make the final decision?
Right. Well, yes and no. Mineral County did issue a final approval for a development plan for this project in 2003. It included none of those things that you just said it should include. None. It included no sign-off by CDOT or any other state agency.
How are they going to build an access without CDOT?
Well, it has to.
It has to.
In the end, it has to happen.
Right. All of those decisions were postponed. They approved it.
Subject to those other things. I mean, we do that here all the time. Fine, we'll approve what you want here as far as this development, as long as you get this and this and this and this. And it's always conditions. If you get CDOT approval and you can have your A&D lanes put in, you know, if you don't, it doesn't fly.
Yeah, the issue here was really one of sequencing, where the developer tried to do it very, very deliberately to try to use the approval that he received in Mineral County in concept form to say to the Forest Service, you have to give us access to our inholding because we got approval from the county government. And then conversely, in county government, he argued, you don't need to look at any of the impacts to all these other agencies because the Forest Service is going to do that. And so what we ended up with was with both the county approval and the Forest Service approval tiering to the other, and both looking to the other jurisdiction to resolve all of these clear contradictions and problems with the development plan. For example, you know, Mineral County said the Forest Service is going to decide whether or not the development has enough water. And the Forest Service said, no, it's not our responsibility, it's Mineral County's responsibility to decide if the development has enough water.
I would agree with that.
I would agree with that too. What's different about this piece of property, though, that places a higher level of standard on what the Forest Service responsibility is because of the fact that the Forest Service owns an easement on this piece of property. And that easement specifically gives the Forest Service the responsibility to approve what occurs. Land use.
What type of easement is it?
It's a scenic easement, but it includes restrictions on industrial facilities, restrictions on storage of certain types of materials, as well as specific authorization or requirement that the Forest Service approve any and all land use plans as well as architectural styling before they can be approved. Forest Service never did that. It didn't do it as a part of its EIS process. It didn't do it beforehand. It never did it. Hasn't done it since. So the Forest Service in this case has additional responsibilities, or at least certainly additional opportunity to be involved in what takes place on this piece of property that's unique. It's unlike perhaps any other property that I'm aware of in this area, and that dates back to where this property came from, this quirky land exchange.
With the use that was there, the Forest Service saying it really does not violate any of those issues?
It's possible, but they never did that. You know, have they gone through and said, you know, we don't think this is a problem for all these reasons? Sure. But from my perspective, a liquefied natural gas power plant is an industrial facility that involves the storage of a material that's listed as a hazardous material. Neither of those things is legal under the scenic easement, which the Forest Service never chose to consider. Those are the kind of issues that somebody ought to, whether it's Mineral County or the Forest Service, somebody had the responsibility to look into. Right? you had a question back here, and then I'll come back from.
I did, timing's good, because Forest Service issue is one that I've always been curious about. And we hear a lot of hearsay
Yeah.
about the Forest Service on this issue, because my understanding was Forest Service would, and normally would be the biggest hurdle for him to overcome in
Yeah.
this situation. But the hearsay and comments I've read is that he has some powerful relationship with somebody out and high in the district, in the department or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And is that true or false? What
It
do
was
you know
very
about
true under the last political administration. Bob Hans was actually caught bragging to the press about how he got his buddy Mark Gray appointed to the head of the Forest Service. Not a really wise thing to go and do, but anyway, they did have strong connections within the agency under the last administration. There's a whole new group of people there. Now, I don't know the extent of the relationship between the new people and Mr. McCombs. I do know Mr. McCombs has hired a number of Democratic lobbyists now here in the state of Colorado as well as in DC because of the shift politically. One of those guys is named Michael Vino. He worked on John Hickenlooper's mayor campaign as well as Senator Udall's campaign. So, well-connected guy in Denver that's been working on this project with Clint Jones since they've started down this kind of new path.